Yo, what's up everybody? It's your boy Mood616 here, and thank you once again for stopping in, guys. Now this time around, this is going to be a brand new series entitled 1990 What? And what that means is I want to take a look at films specifically from the 90s that I feel have maybe been overlooked because they were from the 90s. Some of these films, of course, people have obviously seen and stuff, but I just want to talk about, you know, some good films from the 90s because I feel like it's a decade that gets so much hate, and for obvious reasons, but there is a lot of good films that are kind of mixed in that hate that I think get overlooked because they're from that decade. So yeah, the 1990s, just give my brief thoughts on it. It's a very odd decade. You know, in the beginning of the 90s, the major studios really wanted to stop producing horror films. It is one of the biggest contributing factors to the decline of the horror film in the 1990s. In the 1990s, basically what was happening, or in the later 80s, I should say, films started losing money quite a bit. So the studios started pulling out and not really producing a whole lot of films. As you can see, the decline in numbers, especially from 1990 to 93 and then 94 on, and they really kind of suffer. But it was because, you know, they just were not in the frame of mind for producing them, didn't want to lose money anymore. It made a lot of sense. They started, you know, kept making like, you know, sequels and other things like that, but horror films just weren't a big focus on the major studios and stuff. Hence, the later 90s is when the more independent films started really to break through and stuff because these studios just weren't allowing these things to get made. So, but you know, for the 1990s as a whole, yes, I do, and I'm not opposed to saying that as a whole, the 1990s was not a great decade by any means. I mean, as a whole, you know, I mean, if you compare it to the 60s, 70s, and 80s, it's pretty damn bad. But like I said, there is a lot of hidden gems and a lot of gems from each year in the 90s that actually kind of stick out. You know, and that's what I want to focus on this series is, you know, just kind of pulling out those films and talking, you know, about them a little bit and kind of, you know, giving you guys an honest case of checking out some of these films. I've had so many conversations with people and they're just like, oh, the 1990s sucked. And I'm like, have you seen this film? They're like, no. Have you seen this one? No. Have you seen this one? No. I mean, it's not going to change your mind completely and overall for the 1990s, but, you know, it'll give you a general idea that, you know, every decade does have its specific gems in there. And the 90s is no exception. The 90s definitely had some films that I think need to be seen. And there's a couple films I've mentioned to people before and they've never even heard of. And I'm just like, wow, that's really, really crazy. So, and it's probably due to the fact that they're from the 90s. I just don't want to check them out because they're from the 90s. I've heard people say, you know, the 90s have that very specific kind of look and feel to them. And I agree. There's a lot of art in the early 90s and things like that. I mean, they were trying to do other things, but you know, that's what I kind of liked about a lot of these certain films that I will be talking about is that they did stick out because of those reasons. So, but yeah, 1990 What? It's just going to be basically, like I said, a look at 90s films. So I hope you guys enjoy the series. It's not going to be a regular thing. I'm going to do these episodes whenever I get a chance to. I already have like the first like 4 or 5 episodes all planned out on what films I want to do and talk about and stuff. So we'll go from there. So if you guys really like the series, give me some feedback. Give me your thoughts on the 1990s. Also, you know, I couldn't do the video without wearing a film or shirt from the 90s. Delamore, Delamorte, you know, Cemetery Man, which, you know, I'll probably end up talking about in an upcoming episode. It won't be in this one specifically, which would have kind of made sense. But, you know, I've talked about the film on the podcast and stuff. You guys that listen to the cast know my thoughts on that one. But, yeah, 1990 What? Hope you guys enjoy. So, yeah. Alrighty, so the first film here in the 1990 What series is going to be a film from, of course, 1990. I got to start out with a film from the beginning of the decade, right? This is a film right here that I actually was introduced to by my friend and good friend Jeremy, NES Ruler 22, once a co-host on the podcast. This is a film that I'd heard of before, never seen, and you know, it was just kind of one of those ones that you know, upon mentioning to other people, it doesn't seem like a lot of people have actually really even given this film a chance or seen or heard of. Real Morgue actually did a whole spot on this film actually a few months back. Even put this film on the cover, which I couldn't believe. And I'm talking about a film called The Reflecting Skin. This is a really interesting film, very, very artsy type, downer type film. It's starring Viggo Mortensen. Probably said his name wrong. I always say that guy's name wrong. But directed by Philip Ridley. from 1990, of course. Basically, this one follows this young boy. He's about something like 8 or 10 years old, and he's living in a world of hurt. His mother physically abuses him. When he's bad, she tries to give him like water poisoning, which is drinking too much water until you puke and stuff. His father, might have a really nasty past with his sexuality and maybe abusing little boys and stuff. He's got a brother that kind of neglects him and stuff. He's off at war and doesn't really care for him a whole lot and stuff like that. And just everybody around him just is this reflection of just kind of bitterness. And to top things off, he ends up witnessing his father's suicide, which kind of sets everything in motion in the film here. So basically, this one's set in like a very isolated area in Idaho, set out in these wheat fields and stuff like that. And it's just a story of really, really down. And, well, I don't want to give away the whole metaphor of the film, but the whole movie is just a metaphor basically for, American society and, the darker side of American society and really what you don't see. But to top everything off, all these things are going around and all these things are happening in the film. And he starts to think that his neighbor is actually a vampire. So when his brother comes back from the war, his brother starts dating this girl. And, he's consumed with the idea that this woman is a vampire. And so it kind of sets everything in motion. And meanwhile, this is going on. The kids and stuff are disappearing in the neighborhoods and they're winding up dead and stuff. And it's just a really, really kind of awful setting, very down setting to the film. My overall thoughts on this one, it's a very, very beautiful film. It's shot so elegantly. It's executed elegantly. The acting is very, very superb in this one. I mean, the visuals, the cinematography in this film is just fantastic. I mean, the cover right there is pretty much what you're going to get. A lot of like really long, wide shots of the scenery and things like that are very representative of the metaphor that's being spoke of in the film, which is very cool. This is a perfect example of a film that basically has not one likable character in the film. It's very... It's not even sympathetic to the little boy who is actually being abused himself, because in reality, he's a little shit himself. I mean, he takes out his aggressions on certain things, and I'm not going to give away the scenes, but, he's a little shit himself. But yeah, not one likable character in this entire film, which is kind of the point, because this is what they're showcasing in the film. They're showcasing this kind of darker side of reality. I mean, everything, even from the cop who just treats a little boy like shit. It's an outstanding type of film with a really great ending too. A really fantastic ending. I couldn't recommend it enough. This one runs about 96 minutes. Apparently, when this film was shown at the Toronto Film Festival, I want to say Toronto Film Festival back in probably 89, 90. Apparently it was like about 20 minutes longer, so I don't know if that cut actually exists of this movie. I've never seen or heard of a longer release of the film, so a lot of times it does happen. There'll be a different cut in the film festival, and then the actual cut that comes out is a little bit shorter or longer, whatever they want to do with it. This is no exception, so... But The Reflecting Skin is a film that you definitely need to check out. It's really, really fantastic. Overall, just it's a really heartbreaking and kind of gut-wrenching type story. It's very subtle in its approach, which I really like. It's not overly slow, but it just has a lot of these scenes where you're just like, oh my god, it's just a build-up of like just insane insanity at times, right? So, yeah, The Reflecting Skin. I don't want to give too much about it. Talk about these films briefly, but check it out. It's a really, really underrated, kind of overlooked gem from the 1990s, which started off the 90s, so check it out. Really cool stuff. Reflecting Skin. All right, so next up here, we're going to get into a film from the mid-90s, 1995, directed by Larry Fessenden, and of course it is called Habit. Yeah, it's one of the films that was released here on this box set from Scream Factory. Now, I will admit, Habit is a film that I never got to see until this box set came out. It was a film that I always seen in the movie stores and around and stuff, but for some odd reason, I never gave it a shot. I think it's probably due to the fact I never really cared for the artwork, which is so unfortunate because it's a film I'm not even 100% sure I would have fully enjoyed or even understood back in 95 because I would have been 15. It probably wasn't my thing, but nowadays, it's a very, very interesting and good film. Basically, Larry Fessenden, he actually stars in this film. I think this is one of the only films where he actually takes a starring role in a film that he directed. Yeah, he basically plays this character he's on a slide in life, man. He's having a lot of issues, man. He's dealing with like substance problems. You can tell that, he's a heavy drinker and things like that. His father has just passed away. That's kind of put a big bolt into his life. And to top things off, his girlfriend has left him. So everything has kind of come crashing down in his world at this time. He lives in New York. He lives a pretty decent life. Not like upper class or anything, but he's a manager of this restaurant and stuff. He does okay. He gets by. He's a very type grungy guy and stuff, but very artsy. He lives in kind of this artsy type world and stuff. But of course, everything is kind of is on a downslide for him, and he meets this girl named Anna. And basically, he doesn't know what she is, but he knows that he is very attracted to her. They start to have relations and stuff, and he becomes almost like addicted to her. And he can't figure it out, he starts drinking more, and, he starts partying, and he's just having like all these weird thoughts and stuff. And every time he's with her, things are just a lot different, And he's really, trying to almost get away from it, but he can't because it's such a addiction. The whole film is basically kind of a huge metaphor for, addiction and things like that also. So anyways, he starts dating her, ultimately to find out that, that she might be a vampire, and that, she might even be feeding on him and things like that. So my overall thoughts on this one, it's a very, very awesome film. It's very artsy. It's very gutsy for its time. It's just a new vision on the vampire genre and things like that. It's not a film that is relying on guts and gore and things like that. It's relying on its characters and its setting and the ability to showcase those things. And it really does show it, man. With all the characters around, the artsy setting and the music. The music is a really big part in this too. It fits very well. The kind of grungy New York and stuff like that. Still in 95, things were a little bit grungy by the looks of it. I love the way Fessenden shot this film. He shot a lot of things kind of guerrilla style. It showcases a lot of the 90s New York and stuff, which I thought was awesome. There's even times where you can see the odd character kind of looking at a camera because he's shooting out in the streets at times. All handheld and stuff. It's not like shaky or anything, but it is handheld. But this one ultimately comes to like a really awesome finale. It's a longer film. I think it runs close to 2 hours. I think it's one of his longest films. Yeah, about 113 minutes. So it's this character piece of these people that it's got a slow kind of build up to it, but it's executed perfectly, and it's got a great ending. It's got one of those endings where it's just like, damn, man, of course, you just kind of do that to it. But yeah, I think if you like these artsy films, might really be into this one. I think it's a good film. It's got great atmosphere to it. Also, like, a lot of the scenes in these places and stuff, I really don't want to give away, but it's just shot really, really well. Fessenden did a great job with this one. Very underrated film, in my opinion. I don't think a lot of people have seen this one. They probably have seen it now that Scream Factory's released the box set, but if you haven't, give yourself, allow yourself to see this film. Don't shun it. Even though it's from the 90s, but give it a shot. Have it. So, 1995. All right, so we were just in 1995, so now we're going to take it to 1994 with a British film starring Christopher Lee, and it is called Funny Man. Now, this is a film right here that I've talked about a few times in random Top 10 Tuesday episodes, but I've never heard anyone talk about this movie. I think nobody has seen this one. It's definitely an overlooked film. I never got a chance to see this one until the 2000s sometime. Probably because it wasn't even here. I don't even know. But yeah, this one right here. I love the quote on the front of this film. It says, "Hammer Horror meets Monty Python in the most original British movie of the decade." It's a really great quote. I love that they use that quote because it's a great way of describing this film. Hammer Horror is kind of a stretch. They use that because Christopher Lee is, the headliner name in this film. Basically, the film starts out where Christopher Lee and a bunch of his friends are playing this poker game, and Christopher Lee bets his house in the UK and loses this poker bet or whatever. So this family actually moves into this house where they encounter this jester, and he's just this mean little quirky, sarcastic bastard that ultimately ends up killing this guy who won the poker game, his family, his wife and his kids and stuff. And, and then ultimately, his brother is actually arriving with some of his stuff and things like that. So there's more characters that are introduced to the film, and that's basically your film. This is a very odd film. It's probably one of the strangest films I've ever seen. You know, if you're not into British humor, this one might be a hard one to digest, but you definitely have to see it once to believe it. It's such an oddity. There's so many weird things that are happening in this film. There's so many weird things that are happening, and you're going, why is this happening? But at the same time, you kind of question it and go, it doesn't really matter because it's just entertaining. This one is a mess. In narrative, it really doesn't make a whole lot of sense, to be honest. But it's not really about, the narrative. It's more about the comedy elements of the film and the nastiness of the film. There's a lot of really interesting shoutouts. There's even one character in this film that is definitely, Thelma from from Scooby-Doo. It's just, and her kill scene is probably one of the funniest things too. But that's one thing I love about this film. It's very sarcastic. It's very mean-spirited in kills too. I mean, the first person that dies in this film is like the youngest kid, and then they kill the daughter and they, play soccer with her head and things like that. Like, there's a lot of kind of dark comedy, mean-spirited kills in this film, which I really do like. I like that type of comedy, but, it's just one of those films that you watch and go, wow, like, what are they going to do next? It's so freaking strange. There's even a scene where the Garbage Pail Kids movie is playing on the TV. Like, I mean, that's just how random and bizarre this film is. Christopher Lee narrates this one. For the most part of the film. I think his scenes and stuff were shot in one day. He really didn't have like a huge part in this film. So when you see Christopher Lee's name on it, as a top bill, it's definitely one of those very, very short type cameos. But I have to say, man, some of the gags and some of the things that they do in this film are so out of left field, so random. It's kind of set in this like almost nightmarish world. You don't really know, like, you don't really understand exactly how some of the scenes are happening within the timeline of this film either. It's just one of those things, but I think if you leave all those thoughts and all those questions off to one side and you watch this one, it's going to be a lot of fun. If you can accept it for what it is, I think it's a masterpiece of the macabre and just strangeness. It's such an oddity. There's really no film like this from the 90s that I've seen yet. It's so strange, maybe because it is British. I'm not 100% sure, but definitely give this one a shot. It's so freaking weird. It's such a weird film. It definitely won't be for everybody, but I think if you're willing to give films a shot, definitely check out Funny Man. It's really good stuff. So from 1994, Funny Man, yeah. All right, since we're going backwards here, we were just in 95, 94. Now we got to take it to 1993 with York Berkerite's magnum opus, in my opinion, and that is Schramm. This is the last film that York Berkerite, I can never say his name right, he's probably going to kill me for that, because I heard he gets pretty mad when you say his name wrong. But yeah, this is like the fourth and final full-length film that York did, which I don't really understand why. I do have an idea of why he stopped making full-length films, because if you're familiar with his work, he directed Necromantic, Necromantic 2, Der Todesking, and Schramm. Now, I believe that like Necromantic and Necromantic 2 were made as statements, against the censorship in Germany at the times. And I believe all of his films were kind of statements for the censorship that Germany was projecting on their citizens and stuff at the time. I think it was kind of maybe coming to an end at this time. I'm not 100% sure. And maybe he didn't feel like, making films with this type of strong message really mattered anymore. So he stopped doing films. I don't know. That's kind of my idea of why he stopped. Maybe someone else has a better theory. But Schramm right here is a very interesting film. It's short. Schramm, Inside the Mind of a Serial Killer. Basically, this one starts out with your serial killer laying in his own pool of blood, and it kind of showcases the events leading up to that backwards. This one's played out in a very non-linear storyline narrative. It's kind of very broken. It kind of switches from his thoughts of perversion and murder and madness and stuff to, the present day where he's like, involved with one of his neighbors and stuff like that. So when you watch this film for the first time, it might be a little bit broken, hard to understand, but it does actually make sense. It's a very unapologetic film. It's, you almost feel sorry for him. You almost feel sympathy for the main character in this film because he knows what he's doing is completely wrong. So he kind of punishes himself over and over again in this film, in his mind and stuff. There's a scene in this film involving nails and a penis, and I just, like, every time I see that scene, I'm just like, fuck me, it's so brutal. But that's the type of thing you're going to get. If you're familiar with York's films, it's very graphic, it's very, very artsy, great music. I thought this film is edited perfectly, too. It's edited very elegantly. There's a couple scenes in the film I've still yet to figure out exactly what's going on and why they're in there. One being specifically about the suicide shot in the film. I've never been able to figure out if that's what that metaphor is for, but Schramm is overall a really actually good film. You know, there's a lot of grotesque and kind of taboo moments in the film. There's even a part in the film like you would never expect a serial killer to, you know, to fuck a blow-up doll and then show him cleaning out the vagina after. You know, it's things like that. You know, he has this conscience of cleanliness and doing the right thing and stuff, but then again, he's a murderer. He does nasty things like kill Jesus people when they come to his door. Schramm is a very interesting mind, or an interesting look into the mind of a serial killer, and I think that's a perfect subtitle for the film, because that's literally what you're doing. You're getting all these flashbacks throughout the film, and I think it's really well done. You know, it's not for everybody. It's not, I wouldn't classify this film as German splatter. It's not like one of those type of films. It's German art house is what it is. It's an art house film. Again, if you're familiar with his films, he always has like these very kind of elegant fitting soundtracks, and this one is no different. It really does. The soundtrack fits so well in this film. It's just crazy. Very simple music, but it fits. That's what I love about it. It's great. Schramm, man, my favorite film by Jorg. I think this is his best one. A lot of people say Necromantic is, but I think Schramm is a way better film. It maybe doesn't have the punch and the you know, the message that Necromantic is actually, you know, throwing out there for you, but Schramm does a really good job of what it's supposed to be. It's an eye-opener, quite literally. If you've seen the film, you know what I'm talking about with that joke. But you know, Schramm, definitely give it a shot, from 1993. I think, like I said, it's his best film, so give it a shot. Yeah. Taking it all the way back to 1990 once again here, and with the second film directed by William Friedkin. Now, this film right here comes about 17 years after his obvious masterpiece of The Exorcist, and it is called, of course, The Guardian. Now, this is a film right here that a lot of people have seen. You know, it's not like it's very, very foreign to people. But I really enjoyed this movie. You know, it's not a perfect film. It does have a lot of problems, but you can overlook those problems, you know, and kind of if you can overlook the problems and kind of take it for what it is, it's actually a pretty enjoyable film. It definitely does have some very interesting issues with time in this film, but basically what this is about this couple that moves from Chicago to Los Angeles. The main lead in the film, he takes a job, and he moves into this neighborhood and stuff like that. They ultimately get pregnant, they have a baby, they have busy lives, so they need a nanny. Which this movie's actually based off the book called The Nanny. So they need to hire somebody to kind of watch the kid and stuff like that. In steps, what's her name? Jenna Seagrove. You know, they hire her on to watch this baby. What they don't know is that she's got an interesting history. She's an interesting person because she's kind of, in a sense, like, not really a witch, but she kind of has a deal with this tree. Let's just say that. Where in exchange for, you know, immortality and beauty and stuff, you have to sacrifice babies that are just about 4 weeks old and stuff like that. So, you know, and that's one of the coolest things about the film, is seeing this tree with like all these kind of babies stuck in this tree and stuff like that. So that's essentially what the film is. It's a very simple premise. Now, my thoughts on this one. It's a cool film. I really like it. You know, it's not so much like it doesn't go so much into the folklore, and, you know, I've heard people compare this film to like The Wicker Man. It's really nothing like that. I mean, even though you are sacrificing to this thing and stuff like that, I mean, I guess those elements are there. But this one right here, it's kind of a scary idea. I think the whole focus point of William Friedkin's film wasn't necessarily to focus on the whole folklore and the whole idea of sacrifice and immortality and her possibly being this type of witch or whatever it is. Was the fact of, he wanted to focus on the thoughts of, you know, these crazy people in the world, and what possibly is out there. It's just so easy to let someone into your house, and that's the fear factor. You really don't know who exactly these people are, and that's where the fear factor comes into play in this film. It's a scary idea. I mean, you really don't know people. Even if you've known people for a long time, you don't necessarily know them. This is a great example of you just never know. She's this beautiful person. Of course they're going to hire this beautiful person. She seems perfect, but she isn't. That's the fear in this film. Now, I do have a lot of problems with this one. I really do like the gore in this film. There's one scene where it's kind of unnecessary, but they kind of set it up maybe to put these kill scenes in the film. I don't know. But she seems like she's supposed to be this type of character that's very strong, and because she's, almost immortal. Who knows? But there's a scene where she's by this tree with the baby, and she gets attacked by these no good thugs, these rapists that want to hurt her and stuff like that. Well, she's running and she seems very vulnerable at the times and stuff. Of course, the tree does attack them and do whatever. But that scene right there, every time I see it, it kind of brings down the madness and the of her character. It kind of showcases that maybe she is a real person. I don't know, and I think that's where in the narrative it gets a little bit confusing at times too. But it's not really a big factor. The movie to me still is a little bit scary. I mean, there's a lot of things that are happening, and it's shot really well. Really, really well. Actually, the night scenes in this film are shot awesome. I think, the gore scenes with the tree, the effects are awesome too, man. The first scene where that trunk hits that dude in the head and explodes his head has got to be one of the funnest things I've seen in a film, probably in the 90s. It's great. It's really, really great stuff. Definitely not a full-blown masterpiece like The Exorcist, but it's definitely worth giving a shot. I really enjoy this film. I think it's good. Not everyone's favorite one, but I still think it's a film that needs to be checked out from the 90s. So if you haven't seen this one, give it a shot. It's easy to get a hold of. Scream Factory recently released it on Blu-ray, which is very, very cool because it was long out of print from Anchor Bay and went for stupid prices. I actually had the VHS. I didn't even have the DVD. So it was kind of a big upgrade for me. But yeah, The Guardian, man. Give it a shot. Another one from 1990. Definitely not on the same scale as The Reflecting Skin, but it is what it is. So give that one a shot. So that is going to do it for episode 1. I hope you guys enjoyed it here. We'll do a quick little recap. We had The Reflecting Skin from 1990. Check it out, peeps. We had Habit from 1995. Then we had Funny Man from 1994. Then we had Schramm from 1993. And of course, we had The Guardian, also from 1990. And that is going to do it, like I said, for episode 1 here on 1990. What? I don't know. I'm probably not going to do that every time. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know your opinions on the video if you guys want to keep seeing more, because I do have, like I said, a few episodes already planned and stuff. So, I'm going to do those ones. And I got some really damn good films coming up next, man. Like some really, really good ones. A couple that I have reviewed in the past, ones that I've talked about many, many times, but it just, the consensus is that not a lot of people have seen them, which is unfortunate. So that is the point of the series. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll be back with episode Dux very, very soon. So be on the lookout for that. And as usual,